Hello and welcome to Hills Chat. My name's Kimberly. I have a guest in the studio today and that's Di. She happens to be my mum. She grew up in the Adelaide Hills and is going to come and talk to us about what it was like to grow up in the Adelaide Hills, especially around the Mount Barker area in the 1950s.
So, growing up in Mount Barker in the 50s, did you live in Mount Barker?
No, I actually lived at Wistow, on a farm at Wistow.
Okay, so what was that like, living on the farm?
It was lovely. A lot of freedom.
Yeah.
I was always out on my horse, on the bike. There weren't the restrictions that there are these days. You could go anywhere, do anything. Everybody that went past in a car waved.
Yeah.
Probably because we knew everybody.
Well, that would help,
Yeah, that helped. But it was lovely, apart from the fact that cows, milking cows.
Oh, because of course you were on a dairy, weren't you?
Yes, every morning, every evening you had to milk the cows, and that meant getting the cows in, feeding the calves, doing it all at night. And
so twice a day?
Twice a day, every day.
Yeah.
Every single day of the year. So you couldn't actually go anywhere for
no
very long.
holidays.
You had to come home to milk those damn cows.
Oh, poor cows.
Yeah, poor cows.
Poor you.
Yeah, well, in fact, the very first proposal I ever had, which was a long time ago, was from a guy who was on a dairy farm.
Oh, how romantic.
Well, it wasn't really. I said to him, are you going to stay on the farm? He said, yes. I said, no.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
Yes, it was a great life, but it was so restrictive.
It does sound a bit restrictive, yeah.
But in one way it was restrictive, you had to be there. In the other way, you were free, you could do whatever you wanted.
And we should do a Gawler Street traffic report. What's the traffic looking like out there, Mum?
I can see a car.
There's a car.
There's a car.
Okay, so Gawler Street traffic report for Mount Barker. There is a car in Gawler Street. It is black. Yep.
Now there's a white one.
Oh, we are doing so well with this traffic. And there are a couple of spare parks. If you need to come in and do your shopping in the main street, there are parks in the main street for you. So, that's about all the traffic there is to talk about at the moment.
You went into Mount Barker on Saturday morning to do shopping.
Sounds like a bit of a ritual.
It was a ritual.
And was everybody there?
Oh, you'd walk down the street and you knew everybody.
Yeah.
It took my mother about an hour to get from the car into the shop.
Oh, okay. One of those towns.
Yes.
Having to stop and chat to everybody and ask how everything is. How are the cows?
Right. You had to talk to everyone.
During these shopping trips into the main street of Mount Barker, when the conversations between the mums got really boring, were you allowed to just, run up and down the main street and do what you wanted? Or
you could wander around, but of course I was a very good child.
Of course you were.
Very, very, very well brought up.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Very well behaved. What changed?
Oh, that's not very nice. Where's the respect for your mother?
You're not my mother today. You're a person I'm interviewing about the history of Mount Barker.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. Does this mean that you're not my daughter today?
Yeah, that'll do.
Okay.
Judging by the dates we're talking about, I hate to count numbers at you, but it's been at least 50 years that you've been around the area. So
60 actually.
I wasn't going to say anything because then they'll know how old we both are. So what's changed in Mount Barker and what hasn't changed?
Well, I suppose it used to be that Gawler Street was two-way.
Yeah.
And you always know a local because they still look two ways when they're going across Gawler Street.
I still look two ways when I go across Gawler Street.
The monument, the Soldiers' Monument, that was at the top of Gawler Street.
I've seen old photos of that one.
Yeah, and you had to go round it.
So it was like a sort of mini roundabout thing?
Well, kind of, yes. It's down now, down near the St John's near
place. The ambulance station.
Yes, that's right.
On
what is that road?
I used to know the name of that road so well.
Yes, that's the road.
Oh, how embarrassment.
Yes.
That road just over there. Look, we can see it out the
one.
Yeah.
But for Remembrance Day, we did the ceremony, all the schools, Mount Barker Primary School, Mount Barker High School.
I take it they had to cut off Adelaide Road and Gawler Street to do that.
Oh, there wasn't that much traffic anyhow.
Oh, that's all right then.
The horses and carts, we just stopped them for a while. Yes.
Horses and carts. I don't believe you now.
Don't believe me?
No.
But the primary school and high school all used to march down, and we'd hold the ceremony at the top of the main street.
Oh, it's great to see the schools involved. I know that nowadays, well, when we have Anzac Day dawn services in Mount Barker, there's representatives from the schools, so you'll get the student reps come in and they'll lay a wreath. But if you look around, you see maybe 4 or 5 kids from each school in uniform.
Yes.
So
now,
what did they have back then with the schools
the whole school came.
The whole school?
The whole school came, yes. So, of course, the schools weren't all that big back then, but everybody came and they had the ceremony at the top of the main street.
Fantastic.
And they moved the monument. I've got a funny feeling it was moved somewhere else, somewhere out near the high school before it ended up where it is now.
Hey, do you know what? I reckon it's time for another Gawler Street traffic update.
Oh, okay.
And I can tell you there is a lady crossing the road.
Right.
And I can see 3 empty parks. So rush in now. If you want to go shopping in Gawler Street, there are empty parks all over the place.
Well,
and there goes a white car.
Everything's parked across the road. No parks across the road.
I can see parks over there the other side. There goes another white car. That's good.
Okay, I don't think that our traffic reports are going to actually be very popular.
Okay, we might slow down
Let's
on those
move on.
Gawler Street traffic reports.
I can tell you that when I was growing up, I had a pet kangaroo.
A pet kangaroo?
A pet kangaroo.
I know you had a horse.
Yes. No,
and you had the cows. Cows are good.
No, this was before then when we lived at... I lived at Kangarilla when I was little, and then we moved to Maiponga.
Okay.
And at Maiponga, I had a pet kangaroo.
How did you manage to have a pet kangaroo?
Somebody had knocked a kangaroo, and it had a baby in the pouch, and they brought it home, and or brought it to the shop where I lived, and we used to feed it, and it grew up, and I believe it eventually stopped the car.
Oh, that's not a good outcome,
yes.
really. So you had a pet kangaroo?
I had, yes, but at the farm, every year we would have pet lambs, lambs that were abandoned. Quite often if there was a twin, the mother would let one suckle but not the other.
So you got the other one?
The mother died in lamb birth.
During lambing?
Yes, during lambing, that's it.
Now, aren't lambs notoriously born on, like, in the middle of the deepest, darkest, stormiest night of winter?
Yes.
So how did you keep them warm?
Well, we had a wood stove in the kitchen, as you do.
Of course.
And we used to bring them into the kitchen, and if they were really cold, we'd put them in the wood stove.
And I hope they got used to that.
I would just put them in there to warm up.
Yeah.
And then usually around lambing time, we'd have 1, 2, 3 little lambs that had to be fed all the time.
Is that more often than you had to milk the cows?
Much more often. And so you'd have to get up at night and go and feed these lambs. And we always had one called Mary, and we always had one called Teddy. Don't ask me why, but if it was a boy, they called it Teddy, and if it was a girl, they called it Mary.
What about the third one?
Lamington.
Lamington.
Of
course.
Yes.
Of course. Did you come up with that name?
I did.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I was very proud of that.
Yeah.
And we had one Mary that stayed on. Quite often our Marys and Teddies and Lamingtons went off as lambs to the slaughter, should we say.
Lucky they got used to being in the oven then, isn't it?
It certainly was. But we had one Mary who stayed, and she was the house sheep. And when we needed to bring the sheep home from the block to the house block for shearing, she would lead the way and they would follow her.
Oh, good on her. So Mary was a bit of a leadership sort of a sheep.
She was a sheep ahead of her time.
Excellent. A sheep ahead of all the other sheep, at least.
Well, she was.
Oh, she knew where to go.
She did know where to go. So, that was good fun. We had hens and geese. There were always sheep. There were always lambs. There were always cats. There were always dogs.
Did you spend any time, not feeding all these animals? It sounds like there was an awful lot to do every morning and every night.
Yeah, there was.
You're always the cows busy and on feed a farm. The lambs, and you've got all those poultry and things.
Yes. Yeah, it's a busy time on a farm, but it was good.
So you were going to tell us about when you lived at Kangarilla.
Yes.
Were you a good girl when you lived at Kangarilla?
Well, young Christopher, who lived across the road, and we used to get up to quite a bit of trouble.
Of course, he was the bad influence, not you, yeah?
Oh, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Now, for those of you who know Kangarilla, on the corner there is the corner where there's 3 major roads come in. There is a 2-storey place.
I've seen that.
Yes, well, that used to be the old general store, and that's where I grew up. Well, until I was about 4 or 5. And it was wonderful.
So it's you running amok in a general store?
Well, no,
With
running
Christopher?
amok outside the general store.
Outside the general store.
Like
so
the
what did you get
time-
up to?
Well, I can remember one time that they delivered the small goods, and there was butter, and it was a hot day, and it was melting a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was around, so Christopher and I painted the letterbox with butter.
How old were you?
Oh, probably about 4.
So you would have been old enough to know that was not a traditional use for butter.
Probably. We also painted his uncle's motorbike.
With butter?
No, with green paint.
Oh, good. Did
Yes.
the uncle want a green motorbike?
Probably not. Probably not.
Oh, dear.
I think we both got spanked for that.
I can imagine you would have. Absolutely. So, of course, after these terrible adventures with little Christopher across the road, you, of course, grew up to be a very good girl who never did anything wrong. You were going to tell me something else about your childhood, how this old dude came and wanted to paint some trees.
Yes. At the farm, there's this beautiful gum tree. It's still there.
Wistow is full of beautiful gum trees.
Well, there's this particular beautiful gum tree, and there was this old man that used to come along, and he had a little fold-out canvas seat.
Mm-hmm.
He would sit down with his paints and his easel, and I would go down and watch him. And it wasn't until many, many, many years ago I found out it was Hans Hyson.
Hans Hyson?
Yes. Now,
So it was a mate of yours?
Well, I watched him paint many, many years ago.
Not a lot of people can say that.
And I didn't know until there was this book that I was looking at with a whole lot of Hans Hyson stuff in it that was signed by him. And I asked my mother about it, and she said, oh, yes, he came and painted that gum tree.
So one of Hans Hyson's gum trees is your gum tree?
Absolutely.
Wow.
I don't know which one, though.
Oh.
But
weren't paying that much attention?
No. But I think probably that's one of the most exciting things that I never knew about.
The most exciting thing that you never knew happened to you.
That's right.
I'm sure you would have been completely awestruck if you'd known who he was.
Oh, probably
So
back
was
then,
he
not
famous
so
by
much.
then?
Oh, yes, I'd say so.
Yeah.
But I was very, very young.
Very young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.